Hi, I'm Jennifer.
I'm Mike,
And I'm Andrea.
and we're not saints.
But we sure want to be. And today is a topic that really was, I'm so glad we're doing this saint. For me, sadly, a lot of my friends are dealing with cancer, all different kinds of cancers. So I've been doing novenas lately. And I really wanted to dive into breast cancer, and St. Agatha came out. And I really didn't know much about St. Agnes. So I really wanted to study her so that I can understand exactly who I was asking to intercess and to help me with this prayer for my friends. Her life, I think everyone's going to really learn a lot today and feel for her. She was just an amazing young girl. And a novena, just for you that don't know, it's not magic. It's just a way to ask God for more prayers. I don't know, for me, when someone gets cancer, I can't solve it, right? I can't fix it. I wish I could. I can't negotiate with it. But what I can do and what I'm trying to do, and I'm really learning to do, is I'm really trying to pray. And when I pray, I want to pray for my friends who are suffering so much. And a novena it doesn't mean I have an outcome for the situation, but I'm trying my hardest. I don't know if that makes sense, what I'm trying to say. But when I started praying the novena to St. Agatha, it just opened up more of who was this young woman. And she loved Christ. And I know that we know this from all the saints we've been discussing. She loved Christ more than, so much. And at such a young age, she committed herself to Jesus. And that to me was beautiful. And as we'll learn more through Mike and through Andrea, a Roman official fell in love with her because apparently not only was she just wonderfully smart and wonderfully faithful, she was also beautiful. So men wanted to marry her. And this Roman official wanted her. And she said, sorry, I've given my life to Christ and I am not. And what he did was just horrific. At first, he thought he could persuade her, send her off to
Prison.
the brothel. And then he had her tortured, and she still remained faithful to God, to Christ, and to being so in love with him. And that love is so strong. And that's the love that we talk about, I think, every week. And we try to just say that love is so powerful. And I hope we all can find it. So I don't know about you, but like I said, learning about her was extremely powerful for me. It stretched my understanding of courage even further, and of love, and what faith really can look like. And I'll talk about more of that in the closing. But Mike, we're not saints, but we are surely walking with them, guys. And I just am so glad we're doing this. I feel like we're getting closer and closer and closer with each saint we're learning about. Anyway, so I'm turning it over to Mike so he can talk about some of her history.
Saint Agatha was born in Sicily. Quintanus was the name of the city in 231 AD. She was born into a somewhat wealthy family. And at the time, her family were Christians, but Christianity was illegal at that time because the Romans, and, they killed people and imprisoned you if you got caught, practicing Christianity at that period. But as she grew, she became this very young, very beautiful young woman. And the leader of the Roman, I think Andrea can explain that later, but he was, his name was, give me a second, Quintanus. And he wanted to marry her. He wanted her because of her beauty. And she had already given herself to Jesus, and she was not going to be convinced. And he kept pursuing her and threatened her with, as Jennifer said, to send her to the
The brothel.
prostitution
Yeah.
house, and then that didn't work, so then he had her arrested because she was very open that she loved Jesus and she was a Christian, and she didn't try to hide it. So he had her arrested and put into prison, and she kept denying Quintanus and kept denying, and they kept torturing her, doing more and more. Ended up cutting off her breast as one act of torture, and then St. Peter came to her and healed her, and Quintanus really was enraged over her miraculous recovery. So then he went as far as to rolled her in hot embers and broken or sharp rocks, I think they said.
Porcelain, yeah.
Yeah. So then she ended up dying while she was being tortured in 251. So she was only 20 years old at her death. So she went through a lot of pain and suffering,
And still
and still what
showed her love for
all
Jesus.
she had to do was say,
I'll
"I'll
marry you.
marry you," and she would have had a luxurious life, I'm sure. I mean, in the like a first lady, I guess you'd call it. I don't know. But, yeah, so, it's kind of amazing, these young people that were born at that time when you couldn't be a Christian, and they still wanted to be, and I think she knew all along what was gonna happen.
Um,
She'd given herself to Jesus early on, and she stuck with it, so it took a lot of courage, and,
yeah,
so people don't seem to have too much of that in our age, but we try.
yeah.
So, go ahead, Andrea. I think you had something to add to that.
Yeah, I think it's very relatable to have that fear of standing in what you believe in. And it's also relatable to believe in something so much that you're willing to face anything. And facing what Agatha faced, I think, is the worst case scenario where you really have to stand firm in your beliefs and suffer through it. And there were even, when in some of the readings about her, there were even notes that she smiled through the pain, she smiled through the torture, she accepted it, and, I thought that was really powerful too. She was praying to God every night while this was going on, while she was captured by Quintanus and, um, asking for that strength to get through it. So, one of the things I wanted to kind of hone in on in her earlier life when she was able I mean,
Before Quintanus.
yeah, pre-Quintanus torturing. Um, she was practicing Christianity, and she did give her life to God at an early age, but she was said to be a deaconess of the church, and that caught me because I was like, "Wait, deaconess? What's that? What are those?"
Did
So,
you
I
ask Father Stephen?
no, I haven't been able to talk to Father Stephen about it, but it gives me an idea. I think one of our next guests should be Deacon Mike, and maybe he can unpack this
Yeah,
further.
because there are no deaconesses now in the Catholic Church.
Right. So what happened? How did we get away from that? I feel like there's more to unpack, but I found a channel called Made for Glory, and there was a priest who talked about St. Paul's letter to the Romans in chapter 16.
Uh-huh.
He refers to Phoebe as a deaconess, and they're described as a helper of many, and there were women who served this role in the early church, but where did they go? That's the question that I have for maybe Father Stephen or Deacon Mike. What happened? Why did that dissolve? But
Or if any of you out there know, send it to us.
yeah, like how
Mhm.
it came to,
Uh-huh.
end. But back then, they were helpers of the church, and the word where the deacon is derived from means to help. So, um, they're representing that type of work, and that type of work was mainly service to the church, being a servant to people who are serving the Lord. And when people back then, when they were baptized as adults, they were naked.
Right.
So deaconesses would be there to assist in that process for women who were being baptized because of the virtue and
Right.
wanting to
Mhm.
respect the women's bodies. So they would assist with baptism. They would assist people who were unhealthy or dying. Um, they were really they were referred to as somewhat like a social worker almost, and just helping people. But when deaconesses when that stopped, when that role disappeared in the church, there were other roles that they still needed women to fulfill. I mean, we have women serving as lectors. They have they're helping with the catechists. There's parish leadership that women will take over those positions as well. So, what in this video about deaconesses, what the priest had said was that we're taught to appreciate the entire body,
Right.
and
Mm.
we need to pull from all of our strengths, all of our talents, and pour those into the church. When women are not heard and they're not valued, then really the church suffers. So, with that said, it makes me question more why we don't have women as deaconesses anymore. So hopefully we can clear that up in a later episode.
Yes.
But Saint Catherine of Siena also said, "If you are who you should be, you will set the whole world ablaze." So, no matter if you're a deaconess or whatever your title is, if you are who you should be, you will set the world ablaze. So, really focus on who you should be as a person, not as a title. That's what that says to me.
Yeah.
Um, and if anybody wanted to look up this channel on YouTube, like I said, it's called Made for Glory. So that's where I pulled that little tidbit. But
Mhm.
Perfect.
what do you guys think of that?
Nice.
I think that's I mean, as I said, the deaconess part, when I read about it, and I believe, too, in when we take communion, that Saint Agatha, we do pray for her.
Yeah.
And I think Saint Lucy, and there are very few women in that.
Oh, when he's going through all of the
Yeah.
saints and their names. Yes.
She and
So,
Saint Agatha is in there. What amazes me is her love for Christ was so much stronger than her fear. And
yeah.
I don't know if you've been having conversations, but I've been having conversations like with my Bible group because,
Mhm.
think about Saint Stephen, who was the first martyr, right? And as he's being stoned to death, he is still saying, God, they don't, please forgive them. Please forgive them. I mean, his love, but the passion of these saints is just it's infectious.
It
Yeah.
is. And it's amazing to know what all these saints did within the church. I mean, Saint Agatha, she was helping people bring them to communion, to confession, confirmation. So she was really helpful. And again, being beautiful, people are still pining after her. And when Quintanus came for her, she's like, "No, man,
Mm.
I've
Done.
already
Yep.
given myself to God." But speaking of the titles at the time, so she was known as a deaconess. Quintianus was known as a prefect of Sicily. So then I wanted to look up prefect,
Yeah.
and because positions of power are really important when we talk, especially in a historical context, when we're talking about how society kind of moves and how power struggles occurred and these conflicts throughout history. So this is like tale as old as time. Powerful guy doesn't get what he wants, throws a hissy fit, tortures everybody. It's like, come on, have we
I
not learned?
know.
But this stuff is still happening today.
Yes, it is.
So not only is, Saint Agatha very relatable in her journey and with her fight and her faith, but this situation between Quintianus and pining for a woman who doesn't want him and then getting mad about it. But anyway, the
But the
priest.
amount of torture that he did, I
Yes,
mean, and in my opinion only,
right,
how can someone get pleasure? I mean, this is a young girl. She was 15,
right.
and they also did the stretching thing on her.
So, yes, and I read about that too. So,
Yeah.
it was like
It's all the
Yeah.
there were different steps to his torture,
Yeah.
but, okay, and this will kind of answer a little bit of that. So being the prefect of Sicily, I wanted to dive into what did that mean at the time. So
Mhm.
because we're really trying to set ourselves in in that stage of
Right.
these saints so that we can really understand their stories. And we're not saints, so we're not always going to get it exactly right.
Correct.
But prefects were officials and they oversaw various duties. So it was legislative, they were doing administrative work, there were judicial responsibilities, and they worked alongside the emperor at that time.
Mhm.
They also were in command of the military, and a lot of the prefects came from the military, came from that background. They're
Right.
fighting, they're scrappy, and what have you. But their authority came directly from the emperor. So you've got a guy who's been at war, he's been in the military. Now he's on a power trip because his authority comes from the emperor. I mean, we've seen government officials fall into this trap time and time again where they get a little too power crazy and then they make mistakes. But nowadays, you're filmed on camera and people will love you or hate you depending on the day.
Don't you
So,
think a little bit of Gaston from
yeah,
Beauty and the
I'm
Beast
feeling a little bit of Gaston. Love the Disney reference.
Yeah.
But basically, when you're living in this kind of service of such a
Mhm.
powerful human at the
Ah,
time, let's think about his problem as well with connecting with God. He's living and breathing service of the emperor. He's keeping
well, and he
everything
didn't believe in God. He didn't
right.
believe in Christianity. Right.
Christianity's outlawed. You're serving this human power on
Right.
earth. So
Yeah.
his torture tactics, while they are surprising and like gross for us to even read about, this is somebody who's deeply unfaithful. He's faithful to a man who's walking on earth, not to God.
Mhm.
So he's going to be a little messed up right off the bat. But the prefects, they're focused on maintaining order and having discipline.
Mhm.
So being a military officer, and then devoted to an emperor, not to God, and Agatha rejecting him. You've got all these things, and this guy is being guided without faith. So his um his choice to first level, getting Agatha arrested for practicing Christianity, and then threatening her with death. Okay, that doesn't work. Now I'm going to try to persuade her to marry me. She is in her chamber praying for courage, and she's continuing to refuse Quintianus. But this then leads him to sending her to the house of Aphrodisia, and she was well known for punishing women. So
Yes.
again, this is somebody who's serving the
Yeah.
prefect. So she's in line with the system, the earthly system of rank, not the godly system. So she gets sent to this evil woman who's known for her evil torture method. She's being tortured by other women as well
Mhm.
as by men. So, Agatha's being tortured by other women. So, taking it a step further, that's when she gets set on that rack of metal hooks. That was
Yeah.
the other method that she was,
And that's
tortured
when
with.
she was stretched too.
Yes, and then this is right before Saint Peter appears to her, brings her medicine. So we have this apparition of Saint Peter, and throughout the night, did you guys read about the light that was illuminated?
Yes,
Okay,
and it was everywhere. I mean, I just can imagine it. I mean, it was in the nighttime, and the light is what woke her up,
yes,
and the healing, and he healed her completely and put her breasts back on.
right. And so he's healing her. They sent her, let's rewind a little bit. They raked her over this hook thing, and so they put hooks in her body. She's
And her
being
back
stripped.
was completely torn up.
Yes, and
Mm.
she's she gets her breasts cut off. They send her to her cell
To die.
with sorry, this should be like a trigger warning. I'm sorry, we should probably trigger this before, but she's sent to her cell assuming that she's gonna die because
Right.
they refuse to bandage her. That's how evil these
Exactly.
people were. Let's send her away while she's still bleeding, no bandages, no medicine. So this apparition of Saint Peter occurs. Now I know this might sound crazy to people who don't believe in God or they don't believe in these apparitions, but I just left a dinner like a week or two ago where someone claims to have had an apparition of Jesus and claims to have seen this big, bright, beautiful light. and you read about it in all these other apparitions as well. So it's kind of in line if you are following the different apparitions of
Right.
Saint Mary or Jesus or other saints. You'll read about this light. And I was amazed that this is also going back to Saint Agatha's
Yeah.
time. But the guards ran away when
Yes,
they
he
saw
did.
the light.
Mhm.
So this only makes Quintanus more rageful, so then he puts her in front of a crowd and wants to literally rake her over hot
Mhm.
coals and the glass and,
And
force.
strips her completely of her clothes and rolls
Right,
on those clothes. Well,
but then
strips her of her clothes and and rolls her on the coals, hot coals.
right,
But
and this
then
and this is what happens in society all the time when you're not conforming to what other people think you should be doing or what more powerful people are trying to
Mhm.
push on you. But then the second miracle occurs
Yeah.
and
A
The
big
earthquake.
earthquake happens,
right,
and a lot of people die, and she ended up dying.
Not then.
not there.
Right,
So the guards died, they were crushed by
right,
the
by the
pillars.
earthquake, but they
She
used her veil.
That was
Her
the volcano.
But this is what we're talking
no,
about.
but her
It was
veil
a different time. The earthquake happened after like the second torture, and the townspeople were furious at Quintanus
That's right, that's
because
right.
they knew there was somebody more powerful than Quintanus that caused the earthquake because it was God.
Mhm,
Because there were still people that practiced Christianity, they
Right.
just couldn't do it in open.
right.
Oh,
I think of that as, like, the second miracle because the first
Yeah.
one was Saint Peter appearing to her and then the earthquake, but she lived through that and her veil was unharmed and
right.
people
Well,
saw that.
the end after she had died, there was a volcano that erupted above the town that she lived in, and the townspeople went to her tomb and got the veil that she was buried in
Mhm.
and held it up at the base of the volcano, and the lava flow stopped.
Yeah,
Mm,
that was the
So
power of her veil. Yeah,
that's why she's the patron saint of
fires,
fire,
right, and natural
volcanoes,
earthquakes,
disasters.
earthquakes,
volcanoes,
and breast
breast
cancer.
cancer.
Yeah, natural disasters, and
Yeah.
so she did live through that because of that earthquake, and
Yeah.
she ends up dying in her cell after praying to God, and she dies at 20 years old, as you said. But, the people who brought her headstone to her gravesite,
Mm.
um, they were never seen again, and some people thought that it was angels that delivered this headstone because they had never been seen in Sicily
Oh, I
before.
did not read that. I love
Yeah.
that.
So they had the people who brought the headstone, they had never been seen in Sicily before that, and then they delivered the headstone, and then they left. They were never seen in Sicily again. And as you said, Mike, this made people revolt against Quintianus, but he ends up fleeing, runs away, just like
Good.
the guards ran away from the light when they saw it.
Yeah.
He runs away, and he ends up drowning in a river.
Mm.
Oh, yeah, yes.
Yeah, and they never found his body. So it's very interesting how these things that we might if you're even if you don't believe, you might think of it as like, "Oh, well, that was lucky." In those moments,
No.
really question,
Oh,
go
yeah.
through how we can explain this being luck and this being divine intervention, and I think that's, like, categorized like, throughout this story, you can categorize so many of those things that happen in divine intervention and miracles, that happened for her.
It truly is, this saint, she really was someone who just got me going. And, did you pull any Bible verses this week?
I did,
I knew you would.
so, in Psalm 27:1, it says and it's probably a pretty well-known one, honestly. "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom should I fear? The Lord is my life's refuge. Of whom shall I be afraid?" This kind of characterizes, Saint Agatha because throughout this whole story, she believed, she knew, and she followed God and didn't let anybody persuade her otherwise, no matter the torture, no matter the threat, she was still
Exactly.
able to stay on that track. And I believe that, as Saint Catherine said, that Saint Agatha knew who she was supposed to be and who she was meant to be and what God intended for her. So
Mhm.
this story just kind of echoes through time as that light of courage for those who are struggling.
Right. And, that's the one thing, like, and it's been coming up, and I don't know if it's Lent, so we're having deeper conversations this time of year, or if it's just where we all are in our journey right now. But, like, in my Bible study, we've talked about these saints, and, you don't wanna say it out loud because can I, will I, would I be brave enough to stand and say, "Yes, Jesus is," which he is my Lord and Savior, and I love him. If they were cutting off my breast, would I still say it? I hope and pray that I would, but I don't know. And so these conversations we've been having, I even had one last night with another spiritual group that I'm in that brought up the same questions because we're reading Acts and certain things that people in the Bible have gone through.
Well,
It's
and a
just like
lot of
standing
these
it up.
saints in their very early lives, I mean, they begin by making these choices, I think, at such early ages sometimes, and sometimes it's later in
Right.
life, when some sort of disaster happens or some tragedy happens, and then they're running towards God because of that. But,
Mhm.
so many of these saints are born into wealthy families, and the first inkling of it is, like, when they choose poverty right
Right.
away, and
Right.
Right.
that's the first step for a lot of them where they're like, "No, I'm gonna follow God, I'm gonna give everything away, I'm not going to have any earthly attachments." That's the first step of courage, really, I think, for some people, and it could be something different for each of them. But even when you're not being tortured, when you're choosing to give something up, and we're
Mhm.
in Lent right now, we're choosing to give
Yes,
something
we are.
up. So it's helpful to think about that, especially during this time.
Uh-huh.
Um, Having the courage to do that, uh, because "Oh, I'm missing out on that indulgence. I'm missing out on that thing that really makes me happy at the
I
end of the
know.
night,
Mhm.
having a little ice cream," or something like that.
Exactly. I
Yeah.
get it. I just know I feel, and I was talking to Mike about this earlier, since we've started this podcast, I'm falling more and more in love with the States. I'm really enjoying this journey. I wanna know more, um, and I just know that we're not saints, but walking with them, it's changing
Right.
me.
And
Mhm.
none of
And
none of the saints were born a saints.
no, but what I'm saying is by walking with them now, they're
Right.
changing, I think, me. I don't know about you guys, but I love that this journey that we're doing.
Me too.
And
Mhm.
so on that note, I just want to say goodbye to everybody. I mean, I hope that this has ignited something
Yeah.
inside of you. Makes you want to grow and get to know the saints just a little bit better.
Yes, and some of the things that came from this, I hope we can talk to Deacon Mike and talk about these old
Mhm.
positions in the church, what happened to those positions.
Yes.
We're not only learning about their lives and those virtues that they held so dear, but the changing of the times and the evolution of our faith too.
Mhm.
So, I
Exactly.
really have enjoyed learning about that.
Well, thank you guys for joining us. Have a great week. We'll see
Thank
you
you so
next week.
much.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of We're Not Saints. For more of the We're Not Saints shenanigans and behind the scenes content, you can follow us on Instagram at We're Not Saints 1. That's We're Not Saints 1 without the apostrophe. And be sure to follow us wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. We'd also love to hear from you. So leave us a comment or a review or contact us by email at we're not saints1@gmail.com.
And if you'd like to have a great companion to your weekly saint studies with us, you can purchase a copy of my books. Are You There, Mary? How to Resurrect in Love After Loss, and or Finding Love in the Confessional on Amazon, available as a Kindle version or paperback.
All these links will be provided in the description of this episode. And don't forget to tune in next Wednesday for our weekly dose of saints. God bless you.
Should you read it again with more intonation?
No.
It was very Mike.